In 2017, Maserati sold over 51,000 cars worldwide. Last year, it sold 7,900. That's not a slow decline. That's a 110-year-old Italian icon losing 85% of its business in less than a decade. And at one point, its own parent company was reportedly asking a brutal question behind closed doors. Is it even worth keeping alive? This is the story of how one of the most legendary names in automotive history nearly vanished, and the high-stakes gamble being made right now to save it. Let's start with the number that should scare every Maserati fan: $25,000. That's roughly how much money Maserati was estimated to be losing on every single car it sold. Not making, losing, sell a Grecale, lose money, sell a Gran Turismo, lose money. In a business built on razor-thin luxury margins, that's not a rough patch. That's a company hemorrhaging cash with no tourniquet in sight, and the sales chart tells the same horror story from a different angle. 2023, 26,600 cars sold. 2024, just 11,300, nearly cut in half. 2025, only 7,900. The brand's worst year since 2012. 3 years, 3 collapses, one direction, down. To put that in perspective, Maserati's biggest rivals were doing the opposite. Ferrari sold 13,640 cars last year, nearly its full 2024 total. Lamborghini didn't just hold steady, it set an all-time sales record with 10,747 cars, its third straight year above 10,000. 2 Italian supercar makers thriving, 1 Italian luxury icon in freefall. So what actually broke? Part of it was simple. Maserati stopped launching cars people wanted to buy. Its big hope for volume, the Grecale SUV, was supposed to be the brand's bread and butter. The car that keeps the lights on while the Gran Turismo and MC20 handle the glamour. Instead, Grecale sales collapsed by more than half in a single year. And here's the trap Maserati fell into. The Grecale starts around $85,000, which sounds expensive until you realize that's Porsche Macan money. Except the Macan comes from a brand with a rock-solid reputation for reliability and tech. And Maserati historically ranks near the bottom of reliability rankings. Buyers with $85,000 to spend just went elsewhere. Then there's the identity crisis. Maserati was stuck in what one analyst called a no man's land, too expensive to compete with BMW and Mercedes on everyday luxury, but not exclusive or fast enough to justify the premium over brands like Porsche. It wasn't the cheap option, and it wasn't the special option. It was just there. And when a luxury brand loses its reason to exist, it doesn't matter how beautiful the badge is. Buyers stopped showing up. And while the sales numbers were bleeding out, the boardroom was on fire too. In December 2024, Stellantis, the massive conglomerate that owns Maserati, along with Jeep, Fiat, Alfa Romeo, Chrysler, and a dozen other brands, lost its CEO. Carlos Tavares resigned abruptly, and just months earlier, he'd reportedly warned that any brand that couldn't turn a profit would get shut down. That's not a subtle threat when you're the worst performing brand in the portfolio. Then in February 2025, Stellantis pulled the plug on a planned $1.6 billion investment earmarked for Maserati's future, including electric versions of the MC20 and successors to the Quattroporte and Levante. Just canceled. Italy's biggest auto union publicly demanded answers at an emergency meeting. Production at Maserati's Modena plant, the home of the MC20 and the Nettuno V6 engine, dropped a staggering 79% that year. The Mirafiori plant, which also builds Maserati sports cars, saw production paused multiple times. Maserati even swapped CEOs in the middle of the storm, replacing Davide Grasso with Santo Ficilli, who was already running Alfa Romeo, to try to steer both struggling Italian brands at once. Ficilli himself admitted the brand needed a new leader in place before any real turnaround plan could move forward. By early 2026, when Stellantis posted a jaw-dropping $26.3 billion net loss for the year, reporters point-blank asked the new CEO, Antonio Filosa, "Are you selling Maserati?" He didn't say no. He talked about regionalization and deflected to an upcoming investor day. That's corporate speak for, "We're not ready to tell you," and everyone in the room knew it. It took a Maserati spokesperson stepping in afterward just to walk the ambiguity back. For a brand with 110 years of racing pedigree, three-pointed crown badges, and a name that's been whispered in the same breath as Ferrari and Lamborghini since before World War II, this was as close to the edge as it's ever come. So here's where it gets interesting. Because Maserati didn't die, and the plan to save it just got unveiled. In May 2026, Stellantis held its first investor day under new CEO Antonio Filosa, laying out a massive 5-year, roughly $70 billion turnaround strategy called Fast Lane 2030. Buried inside that plan was Maserati's lifeline. A spokesperson finally went on record and said it directly. Maserati is not for sale and remains the only luxury brand within the Stellantis portfolio. So what does fighting back actually look like? First, focus. Instead of stretching Maserati across dozens of half-baked projects, Stellantis is repositioning it as the crown jewel of the entire company. The one true luxury brand, sitting above regional volume brands like Jeep, Dodge, and Citroën. That's a very different strategy than treating it as just another badge buried in a portfolio of 14. Second, new metal. 2 new electric Maserati models are reportedly in development, expected to be revealed as early as December 2026. Interestingly, they're said to be built in partnership with Chinese tech giant Huawei and manufacturer JAC, giving Maserati access to advanced EV technology it simply couldn't develop alone. While the brand retains control over design and branding, it's a controversial move. Critics worry it could dilute the prestige of an Italian icon, especially after leaked spy photos of the current lineup did little to build hype. But it's also a pragmatic bet. Borrow the tech, keep the soul. Third, the current lineup is getting a moment to prove itself still matters. The MC Pura, Maserati's flagship supercar, starting around $250,000, has actually been earning praise from reviewers for blending old-school Italian design with a carbon fiber tub and genuine race-bred performance. It's not going to save the sales chart on volume alone, but it's proof the engineering DNA is still very much alive under the hood, and there's a bigger structural bet underneath all of it. Stellantis is building a new shared STLA1 platform designed to unify 5 separate architectures into one, targeting 20% cost efficiency and up to 70% component reuse across brands by 2030. The idea is that a leaner, more efficient parent company finally gives its luxury brand the room and the resources to actually be luxurious again, instead of getting starved every time the wider company hits turbulence. Is it a guaranteed comeback? No. Skeptics point out that Stellantis has had to publicly deny selling Maserati more than once now, and the sales numbers for 2026 haven't turned around yet. A turnaround plan is a promise on paper until cars are actually rolling off the line and into driveways. The gap between announcing an EV lineup at an investor presentation and actually delivering cars people want to buy is enormous. Just ask literally every legacy automaker currently struggling through the same transition. But here's what's true. For the first time in years, Maserati has something it didn't have in 2024 or 2025. A stated plan, a defined identity as Stellantis' flagship luxury brand, and new products with an actual timeline instead of vague reassurances. Maserati's story right now is a case study in how fast a legendary brand can nearly disappear, and how survival often comes down to boring, unglamorous decisions made in boardrooms, not glorious moments on racetracks. The three-pointed crown isn't dead, but 2026 and 2027 will decide whether this becomes a genuine comeback story or a eulogy that just took a few extra years to finish writing. If you want to see whether Maserati actually pulls this off, make sure you're subscribed, because this story is far from over.